Hey guys, it's Saturday afternoon. I'm in sunny but very cold Nashville. I would love to be in my studio, but I'm doing some chores around the house. But I thought I would stop and take a break and take a look at some Velázquez, one of my hero artists. And I think of all the artists that I have studied in my lifetime thus far, one that I can go back to again and again and learn from, and also to share in the belief, as so many have before me, that Velázquez was truly a painter's painter, and in some estimations, he's considered to be one of the greatest painters who's ever lived. Um, in art, what is not indispensable is harmful. This is one of the precepts which Carlos Duran had formulated after his study of Velázquez. In art, what is not indispensable is harmful. You've got to eliminate every detail that is not important to your picture, that doesn't add to it, because that's how you get the strength. That's how you get the power of the illusion. That's how you draw the sitter in. That's how someone who looks at your piece wants to know more, because you're telling them less. It's that drawing them in with just enough information. And that's actually the way we see. It's not the way we see if we look at a microscope under looking at a slide under a microscope, but it's the way we take the world in. We take in the big picture. We take in the big pieces. My goal was always this: to express the maximum by the means of the minimum. My goal was always this: to express the maximum by the means of the minimum. Here we are. There it is. There's nothing more to say. There. He urged them to make copies of the pictures of Velázquez in the Louvre, not laborious copies, but copies, first pass, plein air. Duran's teaching was focused on the study of values and halftones, above all, halftones. Here lies, he would say, the secret of painting. This is Sargent speaking. Now, this is a photo I made of an old piece of paper that was stapled onto Mr. Kinsler's easel, that he had stapled there, as you can see, for many, many years. The strength of a picture lies not in the vigor of the accents, but in the fullness of what somebody called the silent parts. John Singer Sargent, 1925. This was stapled on Kinsler's easel, had been there all the years. We were friends 27 years. This was on that all those years. Study that. Think about it. The great silent parts. That's the halftones. It's the middle values. It's what holds every painting together. Velázquez understood that. Velázquez, his work exemplified that. And it was true of Duran. It was true of Sargent. It was true of Mr. Kinsler. Here's a Sargent copy of a Velázquez. So when we were saying earlier, when Velázquez went to study and copy the great masters, so did Sargent go and copy Velázquez. And each of us standing on each other's shoulders as the decades go by and the centuries go by. And, you always hope that you leave something behind that someone might find inspiration from. Certainly Velázquez has inspired thousands of artists over the centuries. And look at the marvelous copy that Sargent did, standing in front of a Velázquez when he was a young artist of about 20 years old. Another Sargent copy of Velázquez, and what you might be interested to see on the Sargent was copied of the Velázquez on the right pre-cleaning. So what you see is Sargent painting from an old dirty an old dirty painting of Velázquez, and on the right is a cleaned, same painting cleaned, and you can see so much better than. So if you go to copy this piece today, you'll see so much better than Sargent. Here's another wonderful Sargent copy of Velázquez. It was said sometimes by people who maybe didn't have an artistic eye, but would visit Sargent's studio and see some of his Velázquez copies hanging on the walls and say that some of his copies were so close to the master you couldn't tell if it was a Velázquez or a Sargent. Well, I can kind of see Sargent's influence in there, his own hand, I should say, in his copies, but still, they are very, very accurate copies, but they are very much, you can see they're very much an inspiration to the artist, and he would carry with him things that he was learning from studying the Velázquez right into his own work. Now here's a Sorolla of that same piece, that last Velázquez painting that I think that we know of that he did. There's a Sorolla painting of Velázquez. Another beautiful copy.